Welcome back into Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Asking you to head over to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta into your search browser. Subscribe to our channel there. Leave us a comment, of course, free and available also on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify, Odyssey. You can find us there. And, of course, follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. A little bit less than a month away now from Falcons training camp. And if you go to AtlantaFalcons.com, you can check out all of the available dates. They got all kinds of dates that you can go out and watch practices, weekdays, weekends. They'll have the practice session at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So Falcons are going to be very open to people being there and getting a chance to watch them this year. So as we head into training camp, what are the battles that I am looking forward to most? Where am I going to be focusing my attention most? I know the easy one to say, and it's not in my top three, the easy one to say is the quarterback position. Well, Mariota, Ritter, and all this, that, and the other. This is my thought about the quarterback position. Unless Ritter has this Russell Wilson type of jump and leap immediately, great preseason, great camp, practice, Mariota is going to be the starter. They brought Mariota in because of his familiarity with Arthur Smith's offense, and he's going to have every chance. I'd put it at less than 20% chance that Ritter is going to be the quarterback to start the season. And as we explained on this show, why do I want to put Desmond Ritter in a bad situation behind a bad offensive line? Why would I want to put him in that? You ever see Tim Couch? Did you see David Carr? You know, you don't want your quarterback playing with an Army helmet because he has to run for his life and duck, dodge, dip, dive, dip, doop, dop, doop behind a bad offensive line. So Ritter will get his chance to play because Mariota will not survive 17 weeks because he never has before. When he was in Tennessee and they had Conklin and Llewellyn and all these all-pro guys up front, he didn't survive there. Ain't going to survive here with these guys, behind it. But I'm not for Desmond Ritter starting right away. It's not a knock against the kid. I just don't think that this team has to go in and rush a rookie quarterback, and especially a guy that wasn't looked at as a again, Trevor Lawrence and guys like that are a different breed, right? When they come out of the league, you feel like that they're NFL ready, or you wouldn't draft them number one overall. Ritter is a reason why he dropped to the third round. He's a talented kid. He's my favorite draft pick, but I just don't need to rush him. So I don't have quarterback in my top three. So my top three battles for training camp coming up. Number one, right tackle. Now, I think there's three guys in the mix for this. I think Mayfield will get a little bit of a look. It's Germain Ifedi, and it's obviously the incumbent Caleb McGarry. When you talk about guys who are not locks on this roster, Caleb McGarry is one of those guys. And we explained before, look, this front office didn't draft him. This coaching staff didn't draft him. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. They're not tied into Caleb McGarry at all. And they brought Ifedi in, another former first-round pick, who he's bounced around the league as well. I think he's on his third team in 5 or 6 years or whatever like that. Not that he's some big upgrade over Caleb McGarry, but if it's like that Spider-Man meme, right? And we're going to talk about another position here in a second. That's sort of the same thing, right? That Spider-Man meme where the Spider-Man's pointing to one another. Hey, you, we're the same thing, right? It's like we're looking in a mirror or whatever like that. Ifedi's sort of like that. If McGarry's maybe a little bit better run backer, Ifedi's a little bit better pass blocker. And that's how they balance themselves out there. Now, Mayfield would be interesting because, and either Mayfield is going to be your starting right tackle or your starting left guard. I don't think there's much doubt about it. So I'm not, left guard's not even in my list as well, because if it's not right tackle, then they're going to make shift and they're going to play either Mayfield at left guard, or if he won the right tackle spot, they'll put Ifedi or Wilkinson or one of those guys at left guard. There won't be really much of a battle out of all of it. But right tackle is an incredibly intriguing battle because they aren't set there. You have one of the worst right tackles in the NFL now, and a former first-round pick that is desperately trying to find his next contract in the NFL. Being in the NFL is a lot better than not being in the NFL. And if Caleb McGarry starts and has another bad season, ain't going to be many teams coming knocking on his door saying, right tackle? I don't know. Now, maybe he finds life inside in an interior offensive line, but that right tackle battle, whether it's Mayfield, Ifedi, Caleb McGarry, I'm going to very much be looking forward to that. And to me, that's the most important battle that I'm going to watch. Second, the center spot. Remember how I brought up the Spider-Man meme? You, me. That's the center position. I'm not overly excited for either guy because it's either going to be Matt Hennessy or Drew Dahlman. What's the difference? This organization drafted, when I say this organization, this front office and coaching staff drafted Drew Dahlman. They didn't draft Matt Hennessy. And say what you will, but in the NFL, when you're talking about front office and egos and all this kind of stuff, it's, was he my guy that I drafted or was he somebody? Now look, yeah, if you have Chris Lindstrom or, Jake Matthews, you'd be a fool to just move on for them for the sake of moving on for them. But when you have a guy in Matt Hennessy who couldn't do much of anything last year, and, again, remember we talked about he graded out. He was like the 5th worst pass block lineman looked at going into this year. Okay, like you don't have to have a great backup or another great guy to have a competition with when you have a guy that was that bad last year. The problem with Drew Dahlman to me is he and Matt Hennessy profile the same. At the end of the day, they're two very smart players who are undersized. And you can talk about this and that and all. They're both undersized guys. They're both under 300-pound guys anchoring in the middle of your offensive line. If you have Hennessy or Dahlman, most likely either one of those guys ends up at the same result. They're going to get pushed around by the good defensive linemen in the NFL. The Eagles and these teams that have these good defensive lines, the Buccaneers, they're going to push your guys around. So that's going to be interesting just from the standpoint of, do they think Hennessy has made a big enough jump that he should continue to be the starter? And I think part of the reason that he was the starter last year is just the incumbent. It's just at least he had some experience, a little bit of time, not much, but a little bit more time than Dahlman did. Okay, Dahlman played a little bit last year. You have a full off season's worth of workouts. You get another full training camp, and you can compete with those guys can compete with one another. But I'll say again, at the end of the day, those two guys are the Spider-Man meme. You, me, you, me, them, yes, us, we, we. It's the same guy. They're going to profile out the same. I don't feel better about either one of those guys if they play. I don't have an opinion about which one I think is better because I look at them and I'm like, okay, well, that guy's the same as that guy, and they're the same. That's number 2. Third is going to be the inside linebacker position. So inside linebacker has a lot of intrigue. First thing that has to be figured out is, will Deion Jones be here or will he not be here? That will be the single biggest storyline of training camp is Debo here, not here? Do they move him? Do they trade him? Do they cut him? Do they do something with him? It won't be long before Debo is coming back and rehabbing from the shoulder surgery. And again, we explained, perfect timing, right? You can run OTAs and practices because, oh, well, he's recovering. So you don't have to answer questions about Debo because he had his surgery. It's a quick cleanup process, and we don't have to answer any questions about him until we get into training camp. And then the fire starts, right? So what you do with Debo is going to be one big question. And then from there, who's going to emerge? Rashaan Evans, Kwiatkowski, Troy Anderson that they drafted, Michael Walker. There's a bunch of guys that are intriguing, but you don't feel like any of those guys are, as of right now, the true answer to what you want to do. And I ask this question, who's going to lead this team in tackles? The last 4 years, the past 2 seasons have been, the 2 years before that was Devondre Campbell. To go back to 2017, the year after the Super Bowl, when Deion Jones led this team in tackles. So at least for the last 5 years, it's been an interior linebacker, but you don't have Foye, you don't have Devondre Campbell. So you're looking at that and saying, who's going to lead this team? So that inside linebacker position is going to be very intriguing because you have to figure about Debo and you have to figure out what these other guys can be. So right tackle, center, inside linebacker. That's my top 3 I'm going to watch when we get into training camp. We thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen. We ask you to make A to Z with Mark Zinno your second listen every day. Of course, Mark is back doing Atlanta and giving you his opinions. Takes you may not like, but you know you got to hear. You can find him on our YouTube page, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Subscribe to our page there. Of course, he's also free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Leave us a 5-star review. Tell us what you think about the show. And, of course, I ask you to follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. We will be back with you tomorrow as we inch closer to the NBA draft. This has been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.